for this. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GBNews.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, after Harry and Meghan's exposure as deluded fantasists, the Duchess's estranged father, Thomas Markle, responds to bombshell revelations from the court case sparked by her letter to him, which we now know she expected to be leaked. The man at the heart of the scandal is live from Mexico just after 10. How have we really as a nation started to blindly accept that nearly 1,000 illegal migrants crossing the Channel on a single day is normal? I'll explore that in my digest before I bring in my superstar panel, the former London Conservative mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, broadcaster and author Amy Nicol, and political commentator and writer Dominique Samuels. Should over 65s who refuse vaccine boosters be exiled from society? Esther Ranson and Cheryl Baker battle it out in the clash, and I want your verdict on this one too. Will Alec Baldwin lose his career or even his freedom over that horrific film set shooting? US broadcasting legend Megyn Kelly breaks down the new lawsuit filed by a Rust crew member at 9:30. And the outsider GBNews star Mark Dolan, whose brand new show, by the way, Mark Dolan Tonight, launches this time tomorrow on GBNews, celebrates the woke counter-offensive led by an unlikely figure, Fawlty Towers legend John Cleese. Will voters be able to forgive this so-called Tory sleaze scandal? Rod Liddell is uncancelled tonight on that at 10:40. And should killer dog breeds be banned? We'll debate that and more of today's top talking points in the media buzz. Plus, of course, there'll be a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and we'll reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass just before the end of the show, so stay with us. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. And just one thing, before we get started, much needed good news from Buckingham Palace, who has in the past few hours confirmed the Queen will attend this year's Remembrance Sunday service at the Cenotaph. Her Majesty, of course, remained committed to paying tribute to the fallen when she was ordered to rest by doctors 3 weeks ago. And I'm just so delighted for her and the nation, actually, that she's going to be well enough to attend. God bless her. And of course, our thoughts are with all of the veterans on what is a very special day. My digest and the panel very shortly. But first, the news now with Polly Middlehurst.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening to you. The latest headlines this hour on GB News. Millions of people have observed a 2-minute silence today to remember the men and women who lost their lives in conflict. Marked every year on the 11th hour of the 11th day in the 11th month, people across the UK paused this morning to honour those who died in conflict. And as you saw from our pictures just now, the Duchess of Cornwall joining hundreds of veterans outside Westminster Abbey. And as Dan said, it's also been confirmed within the last few hours the Queen will attend the Remembrance Day service at the Cenotaph on Sunday. In other news today, Border Force officers have now intercepted at least 25 migrant boats attempting to cross the Channel today alone, carrying 50 people on board each vessel. It's been reported that 4 small boats also made it to the shore, landing at Deal in Kent. There's been an influx of migrants trying to reach the UK in recent days, with 1,200 crossing the Channel in the last 48 hours alone. Yorkshire County Cricket Club has confirmed that its chief executive, Mark Arthur, has resigned. It follows a report that found the former Yorkshire player Azim Rafiq had been a victim of racial harassment and bullying. The club's board say they're now looking for new leadership that'll be vital in driving the change they need. A 9th person has died after the crowd crush at the Astro World Festival in Houston last week. And a warning, there are some flashing images coming up on the next few pictures. The 22-year-old college student, named as Bharti Shahani, was described as a shining star in her community, and she was about to graduate from Texas University. Hundreds were injured as the rapper Travis Scott performed, and there was a crowd surge. A criminal investigation is ongoing. A former Labour leader says we need to salvage what we can now from COP26. Shadow Secretary of State for Business Ed Miliband says the reality is the conference won't deliver everything we'd hoped for. COP26 President Alec Sharma agreed that time is running out, but he said talks are now focused on finding a way forward.
We are still some way away from finalising those that are very critical issues which have been outstanding. And I don't think we can overemphasise how difficult this is. If it was easy, we would have resolved this over the past 6 years, but we haven't. And that's why, I am ensuring that we use every moment between now and the end of this COP to reach agreement.
And Stephen Gerrard says Aston Villa's ambitious plans for the club were a factor in him agreeing to become the new head coach there. The former Liverpool and England captain has left Rangers, who he guided to the Scottish Premiership title, undefeated last season. Gerrard replaces Dean Smith, who was sacked by Villa on Sunday. You're bang up to date. Now back to Dan.
How have we as a nation started to blindly accept that nearly 1,000 illegal migrants crossing the Channel on a single day is somehow normal? There is an illegal immigration crisis unfolding before us, yet the mainstream media wants to divert their eyes, the government wants to ignore it because their policies have proved utterly futile, and the opposition refuses to loudly condemn what's happening. But here are the horrifying facts. More than 22,300 migrants crossed the Channel this year, almost 3 times the number intercepted in the whole of last year. According to the Home Office figures, over 1,200 migrants have landed on UK shores on Tuesday and Wednesday alone. 695 migrants made the journey yesterday in 22 small boats, 1 week after a daily record of 853 people made the crossing. Almost 3,000 migrants have made the life-threatening journey this month, 1,000 more than border forces had reportedly planned for. And here's the bad news. Today's activity could be the worst yet. GBNews Home and Security Editor Mark White, who has been steadfastly covering the story when most of the mainstream media have chosen to ignore it, he revealed earlier today that at least 25 small boats, most carrying between 40 and 50 people, had been stopped in the Channel by midday today. In that time, 4 boats landed in beaches along the Kent coast, according to sources. Mark reported earlier that he believes by the end of today a new record may have been set in terms of the number of people crossing the Channel. The government has spent all summer talking about how they were going to address this dire situation, talking tough, but they've been unable to stop the boats. And the boats must be stopped. The despicable people smugglers are making a mockery of the UK's legal migration system. The vast majority of the people arriving are clearly economic migrants, young, male, and well aware they're going to be put immediately into Britain's asylum system. And what's most concerning is that Border Force insiders have suggested that the numbers may not drop to the extent the government hoped over winter. One source told the Daily Telegraph today, officers have told clandestine threat command repeatedly there is no basis for believing the surge in numbers would fall away over winter. The combination of low wave height today, better organisation from the smugglers and larger boats means the crossing is more established as safe and successful. France doesn't want to help, despite the fact we're paying them £54 million. I have to be honest, we were naive to believe they ever would help, with Macron upping anti-UK rhetoric by the day to try and help him win re-election. I've been saying for 2 months that Priti Patel must ignore the hysterical response from the French government and forge ahead with plans for the border force to use pushback tactics immediately. Now, those tactics would allow us to intercept and redirect migrant boats before they reach our shore, and then ensure that they end up safely back on French land. But just ignoring this utter calamity, even though most of the media might be playing along, doesn't make the problem go away. To respond now, let me bring in my superstar panel. Tonight, I'm joined by the political commentator and writer Dominique Samuels, the former London mayoral candidate for the Conservative Party, Sean Bailey, and the broadcaster and author, Amy Nicol. Dominique, why is the rest of the media ignoring that there are now record numbers of illegal migrants arriving almost every day?
Because it's an uncomfortable topic to talk about. I think Nigel Farage basically forced the mainstream media to actually cover it, because it's only when he went out there independently, filming what was happening on the boats and communicating with people and talking to people, it was only then that the likes of the BBC started reporting on it. And even when you read their articles, it doesn't feel neutral. It does feel like it's politically motivated, because, of course, anyone that criticises illegal immigration and the concerns with that is, you know, cast aside as a bigoted racist. Yeah. And that's
Which is obviously
not true.
a joke. It's a joke, because what we want to do is support legal migration into
legal
this
immigration.
country.
And there's no way that, you know, British people, the average British person should be expected to be on housing waiting lists, not able to get property. You've got veterans homeless in the street. Meanwhile, councils are literally having to rent and buy houses and take over whole hotels to house illegal migrants. That's not right.
Just for a second, can we rewind to when we were sitting on this sofa however many months ago talking about Afghanistan, right? Have we all turned into Dory and just had a memory blip? Like, we said we would take 5,000 immigrants. That is not enough. And now we're surprised that we have 3 times the amount of migrants.
Do you not understand what's going on? The whole point is these people who are streaming into the country by the day, most of them actually get rid of their papers. They could be terrorists for all we know.
Dan,
we want to take humanitarian cases in from Afghanistan. Do you know what's happening?
We are not.
These illegal migrants are actually taking their places in this country.
Can we look at what
we
look at what an economic migrant is? It's somebody. Can you imagine leaving everything you've ever known, your whole family, all your friends, everything, because you are deprived,
Amy,
you're exploited.
They're in France.
The fact they're on the boat.
In France. Is France a third world country?
We do not take as many migrants as France. Do you not wonder why France are a bit like, take a few? But we had the worst rate in the whole of Europe.
Look, I want to bring Sean Bailey in on this. Sean, firstly, it's great to have you on your panel, making your debut after your very successful London mayoral campaign earlier in the year, when you came very close to unseating Sadiq Khan without any support, by the way, from the mainstream media, who completely wrote you off. And I, as I said to you at the time, think the campaign could have been very different if people had actually ignored the polls and looked at what was happening on the ground. But that's a whole other story, and we'll talk about it throughout the night, of course. But I'm going to start with a tough question for you, Sean, even though I'm delighted to have you here. The Conservative Party has failed to stop the boats. What's going on? Why is Priti Patel talking tough and then letting the illegal migrants stream in record numbers almost every week?
I think the challenge for Britain as a nation is to do this. Yes, we want to deal with illegal immigration and have a very strong legal situation, but we've got to treat people like human beings. We simply cannot turn those boats away unless we can do it properly. We have an agreement with France, which to my mind sometimes looks like they're not holding up their end of the bargain. We need to go back and push on that. But there's a key step we can make. What intervention are we having with these people smugglers? Clearly, their business is very successful. We need to interrupt that. Very recently, I've been speaking to the police minister, Kit Malthouse, and we in London have had a big problem around county lines. That's taking young people out into the rest of the country to commit crime. He now looks at it as a business and disrupts the business activity. I think it's the same approach we need to take with illegal immigrants.
However, criminalising anyone...
No, hold on, let's be clear.
What does the National
Hold on, let's be
Borders
very
Act
clear.
do?
Let's be very clear. I'm talking about the activity of people smugglers. If you heard my comment, I said it's very important that we treat these people as people.
And what is going to increase people smuggling is criminalising migrants.
Amy, I have to be honest.
Again, criminalising the people who are smuggling people. No, hold on, Dan.
Like
no,
you're
Dan.
supporting the illegal migrant trade and
I
these
personally
people
do not
smugglers.
think
These
that
are criminals, Amy.
Yes.
And people are dying on the boats.
If you make something illegal and you criminalise it in the way Priti Patel has, which in my opinion is to cut costs.
So you support an open borders policy, do you?
I support human rights. And these are people who are fleeing. It's like if you... Wait, let me finish this. If you have a burning building and then you pull away the crash mat, how is that going to help?
They're in France,
No,
Amy.
they are fleeing.
Hold on. It has to be said, we are not the crash mat. That's the important thing.
I think we are the crash mat. I think the global community is very much the crash mat.
I accept that point, but the point is we are not the global community on our own. We have a relationship with France.
And what example does this
We have
set?
a relationship with France that isn't being fulfilled by them. And if you want to talk about the global community, we should be doing more to make these countries bigger, their economy stronger, so people don't have to immigrate. And let's be clear, the distinction I want to make is about we are targeting people who are smuggling people.
Yes.
That is wrong, no matter how you look at it.
And what will eliminate that is by making a safe route for asylum.
We do have a safe route for asylum.
Very few.
We have a
very,
safe
very
route.
few.
Same.
How many people are we
Okay, so it sounds to
accepting?
me like you want an open borders policy, Amy. Can we just be honest about that? Because that's fine if you do. It's a political position, but you want our borders to be open.
If somebody is fleeing a country for whatever reason, they believe they will...
They're in France. Do I need to keep repeating this?
Yeah, they're coming from France.
No, hang on a minute.
They're not coming from...
War-torn nation.
That's why the conflation with what's going on in Afghanistan and what's going on with the border and France is very different. France is a completely safe place. So that's why the distinction between who is legal and illegal, what we can do for them, treat them like human beings, make sure they don't drown in the channel. That should be our first action. But we also need to look at where they're coming from, how we can support them in their own nation so they don't want to leave. You made the point.
Very good point.
You made the point. How comes these people want to leave everything behind? It's because they're not getting the support where they are.
Exactly.
Let's do that.
Are we not being a bit short-sighted in our approach by saying just send the boats back?
No, because if you make the journey easy and profitable, people will take it. What we should be doing is make it easy and profitable and comfortable to be in their own country. And let's be clear, I am the child of immigrants. People do this all the time. That's how the earth has been built. People move around, but this is illegal. They're putting themselves at risk.
And the point is, Dominique,
And they will continue to do so
if we don't support them.
We are pro people coming into this country. Absolutely, there has to be legal
Don't sound
migration.
very pro today.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to like mince my words. Overall, I think that all immigration needs to be reduced. I didn't really agree with bringing in large numbers of Afghan refugees. To be honest, I didn't really agree with making it easier for people from Hong Kong to come here. I just think we need to focus on the people here, and this is my central issue. You know, I understand that other countries do have issues, and I understand that people are risking their lives to get here, and that's really, really sad. But my concern is with the people that already live here, and we cannot afford our housing services, our NHS, our public services cannot afford hundreds of people turning up here every single day. Yeah, and being allowed to stay in hotels, and when their applications are rejected, you can't find them because they've gotten rid of all of their identification and are living in this country legally. That's not the British citizens' fault.
And Amy, do you also not understand that from a security perspective, this is incredibly
don't even
worrying?
do that.
No, I'm serious, Amy. A lot of these people who come on the boats purposefully get rid of all of their documentation, all of their passports, because what that means is that if we were to discover that, for example, they had links to a certain terrorist organisation in their home country, we are unable to send them back to that
or
country.
are grown men and not the children.
I don't care about this whole grown men situation. Like, they're trying to better their lives, and to be honest, I would commend anyone that wants to risk everything, literally everything to get on some boat.
So you're
and come
not
over
worried about the fact that some of these people who are coming in on boats
I'm not
are terrorists?
massively worried about that. I think that's such a tiny minority that you don't need to get wrapped up in that. We need to worry.
Hold on, Amy.
Don't get wrapped up in the idea of
Hold on, Dan. I just have to say, one tiny terrorist, as you express it, is a massive danger to the public in this country.
Yeah. I think you're as likely to get a tiny terrorist within England, which was educated within England.
Even if that's true, we don't want to add to that number. But the driving issue here is these are people, and we want to make those people safe and comfortable. But we should try to make them.
Hold on. People or terrorists?
No, we should try to make that happen where they are for their own good. I'm the child of immigrants. I know what it's like to
uproot yourself. Confirm that most aren't terrorists.
Yeah, I know what it's like to uproot yourself. But the point is, these people are being put at risk by criminals, and that's the last part of what's going on.
What you are proposing is open borders anarchy.
Can I tell you something?
That is what you're proposing. I think you just need to be honest about that.
That is a massive
because
problem.
what you're saying is that you don't even want to know the name of the people coming into this country. You don't want to see their documents. You don't want to look at their passport. I think that is so irresponsible.
Dan, I did not say any of that stuff at all. I did not say that.
But it's what your
however,
policy
I think
implies.
that if you are going to criminalise immigration, you're going to criminalise migrants, which is what Priti Patel's Nationality Borders Act is going to do, then you are going to push more people into the hands of the people smugglers that you are allegedly so worried about.
I think what you're saying is coming from a good place, but I think it's not very realistic to just paint these people as, they're just coming
I don't think,
life,
and equally,
evidence has shown that's not always the case.
And I don't think it's
attacks with rape.
Listen, hold on.
I say they're all good. You say they're all terrorists. Let's meet in the middle.
Let's not talk about people.
Final word to you, Sean. Final word to you, Sean.
Let's not talk about people as if they are going to come here and attack us. Let's assume they're just coming here for economic reasons. The point is we should help build nations across the world so people don't need to make that choice. Hold on, Dan.
But we can't assume anything if we do not know their names and which country they're from.
Let's be clear.
We cannot assume anything.
But Dan, that's the kind of information I would want.
Yes.
I would want that information.
Sure.
That's why I'm saying it needs to be legal. And we need to have systems. We can't follow your example, Amy, unfortunately, because the rest of the world doesn't do that. There is no decent nation on this planet that doesn't have an immigration system. We've got to work together. We can't just open the doors and say, where you go.
I'm saying process every single person that gets on their boat, find out what's going on and assess.
OK, well, what you're going to do, Amy, to sum up, is absolutely encourage the people smuggling trade with that sort of policy.
No,
but I know many folk on the left, many people on the left want that. Amy Nicole, Sean Bailey, Dominique Samuels, Feisty Start, my superstar panel. They are here all night. But coming up, what will become of Alec Baldwin as he's sued over the shooting of a crew member on his new movie? US media superstar Megyn Kelly joins me with the latest twist in this tragic case. But up next in The Clash, is it wrong to threaten to remove the freedoms of over 65s who are hesitant about having a booster jab? I say absolutely, but TV titans Dame Esther Rantzen and Cheryl Baker go head-to-head on this after the break. I want to know what you think, though, more than anything, so you can email me, Dan, at gbnews.uk, or vote at GBNews on Twitter. Back in 2.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Yeah, you'll be
Coming up, but time now for the clash.
No, I just hate.
As if cross-channel relations weren't strained enough right now, we could have the French to blame for more restrictions on our civil liberties. Health Secretary Sajid Javid has refused to rule out following Emmanuel Macron's lead and adding booster shots to COVID passports. Such a move would effectively lock out elderly and vulnerable people who deemed boosters unnecessary from society.
I'm reading in the newspaper this morning that over 65s in France will not be allowed access to restaurants, on trains, etc., unless they've had their booster. Is that something that you might look at?
We're not looking at that yet. You're very focused on our booster program, as you would imagine, over 10.6 million boosts, I think, throughout the UK so far already, a record number of bookings, many people coming forward. I think in due course, we will have to look at what constitutes vaccination. But at this point, the most important thing is that anyone that's eligible gets out there and gets their boost.
OK, you said yet, so potentially in the future.
I can't rule that out, and I think that we know now that the vaccines do wane, and it is important that that those vaccines, where it's necessary, that those people get a top-up, and that's what the booster program is about. But I think it's something that we have to keep under review.
Very worrying. Very worrying. What sort of state are we creating? What do you think about that? Let me know in our Twitter poll, live now at GB News. And I'll also be sharing some of your best comments from there and my email inbox, dan@gbnews.uk. But maybe to help you make your decision, let me bring in two TV titans on opposite sides of this debate, here to battle it out. Delighted to welcome back Dame Esther Ranson, who says we shouldn't have any reservations about booster jabs, and Cheryl Baker, who believes firmly that freedom should never be conditional. Esther Ranson, isn't that the point, right? Why can't we trust the over 60s to make a decision that's right for them, given that vaccine take-up in this country has been amongst the highest in the world?
We are very sensible, we over 65s, there's no question.
You are.
I've had 3 jabs, and with alacrity, and I regard it as a real privilege. I think the problem with this virus is that it's incredibly sexist and racist and ageist. I mean, people are going down like 9 pins, aren't they? Still. I mean, the numbers are still enormously high.
Cases. Cases.
And people like me, you see, if I got this horrible disease, I'm likely to take up really crucial space in ICU, which I don't want. Today's news about the health service right now was really quite tragic, because the ambulances are unable to unload their patients, desperately sick patients, because there aren't the hospital beds. The NHS staff is already exhausted, and this is only November. So what I feel is, if we oldies are prepared to say, OK, if I get COVID, I won't take any resources of the NHS, I shall stay at home and fall off my perch here, then, OK, you have the right to say you refuse all medical help, be it a vaccine or be it the ICU.
But that's not the sort of society we want.
If you expect nurses and doctors to look after you, you must protect them, and you must make sure they can prioritise people. And
so you would want to ban the unjabbed from being able to access health services?
No, I'm saying you've got to make that decision yourself. It's your choice. If you decide that you don't want a vaccine or a booster, then you can decide not to go to hospital however ill you get. And that way, that is your right.
So you would leave the unjabbed at home to die if they had a heart attack, if they suffered from a stroke?
That's their choice. If they're unjabbed, if they take the decision they're not going to use the medical evidence, follow the science, as we say, recognise, because what the boosters do is not only protect you, they protect other people because you transmit the infection far less.
Although you can still transmit even if you are triple jabbed. Cheryl Baker, isn't the point that this is a free country and one of the fundamental principles is that we have control over our own bodies and what we choose to put in our bodies?
Absolutely. I think that I've had 2 jabs and next week I'm having my booster, so I'm not in disagreement with that. I do think that it's a great thing. However, I know lots of people of my age and older who have been quite poorly since they've had the booster. In fact, very poorly since they've had the booster, and it's putting some people off. And I don't think it's right that they have, that they're having their liberty taken away from them. At first, we were all told you've got to have a jab, and then we were told you've got to have another jab, and we all did it. We all did it because we knew it was the right thing to do. And then suddenly, now you've got to have a booster as well. It wasn't you've got to, it was suggested. However, France and other countries are saying if you don't have a booster, you can't come to our country.
Well, and we could see from Sajid Javid where it was heading. And that's the point, isn't it, Dame Esther Ranson? I mean, do you start mandating flu jabs?
Well, sometimes you do. I mean, I've got a friend who's a surgeon, and he's not allowed to practice if he doesn't have a hepatitis C vaccination. It's obligatory. There are people who are put at risk if we carry the infection with us. And in Israel, the evidence really is that if you have the booster, not only does it boost your own immunity, but it does stop you transmitting the illness. So we owe it. We owe it to the most vulnerable. There are people, people with underlying health issues who cannot have vaccines of any kind, people who are already have their immune systems compromised. We need to protect them. We need to protect all the vulnerable. And the way we do that is to do what Cheryl and I have done, which is have 1, 2, 3 boosters. And if next year I have to have a COVID vaccine alongside my flu vaccine, I shall be there in the queue.
But don't you understand, Esther, though, that coercion and mandates actually has the opposite effect of what you're hoping to happen? Because the people who are vaccine hesitant but want to make their own decision, as soon as they see this concept of government coercion, in fact, studies have shown it makes them even more less likely to be jabbed.
Well, it is interesting, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how you persuade people who believe conspiracy theories and would rather believe, something they read on Facebook rather than something that the medical scientists tell us. I can't explain that, except that I wouldn't take their advice about anything. I wouldn't follow their example about anything. And I say, if that's the way they feel, then they must also take the decision that if they fall ill, they won't ask the NHS to look after them because
I find Cheryl
NHS advice.
Cheryl, I find this so disturbing. I mean, we saw it with Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, when she was asked by a journalist, "You're creating a 2-tier society," and she said, "Yes, that's what we're doing." And I can't believe that we've allowed COVID to change our society so fundamentally. It makes me sad and worried and angry on a daily basis.
I totally agree. And actually, when you said I'm going to be Cheryl Baker and Esther Ranson, I thought, oh, Esther scares me. And you do scare me, Esther.
You don't mess with Dame Esther.
I think there has to be, we have to still have the ability to say no. And actually, I think it's a bit far-fetched to say that if you don't have the jab, then you can die at home. I think that's a bit cruel, Esther. That's all I'm saying.
Esther, how do you want to respond to that? You're being too cruel.
Listen, all I'm saying to you is that you've got to be consistent. If you say that you need the NHS, you need the doctors and nurses who are giving you this advice at the moment, then take their advice. I mean, it's not pick and mix. If you're going to say that these are the doctors that understand the right medication, when you're lying in ICU, you're not given the choice of whether or not you lie on your back or your front. They will do what's best for you. If you accept that, then you ought to accept their advice and take the jab. I've had 3 jabs and I wasn't poorly at all, but I did feel privileged. If we think about the people in the world who can't get a single jab, that's a different argument. Should we be having 3 jabs when there are people in Africa who haven't had one?
Well, exactly.
I think there's merit in that argument. But while we've got the opportunity, Cheryl and I promise I won't attack you in the queue, Cheryl, even if you're ahead of me.
Well, I'm glad we've had a happy ending. Both legends are in my book. That's journalist and TV presenter Dame Esther Ranson and the singer and TV presenter Cheryl Baker. So who do you agree with? Sharon, via Twitter, says, it's wrong to threaten anyone's freedom of choice. I'm vaccinated, but totally support those who choose not to. Justina on Twitter says, it's wrong to advertise vaccines as the path to freedom, but forget to mention that people will need to take this vaccine over and over or their freedom is removed. All of it is wrong. And Rebecca, via Dare Dan, says, creating an underclass now gives far too much power to strip further liberties in future. Segregation should be left behind in the previous century, not a free society. And your verdict is now in. 84% of you agree that it's wrong to threaten to remove the freedoms of over 65 booster refusers. So you're with Cheryl Baker on me on that, while 16% of you say no. Fascinating stuff. Coming up, we're joined exclusively by the Duchess of Sussex's father, Thomas Markle, who is once again at the centre of headlines all over the world today. An unmissable interview after 10. But after the break, the tragic Alec Baldwin set shooting takes another twist. US media superstar Megyn Kelly is here to break it all down straight after the break.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
And we're back. Time now for Megyn Kelly, the US broadcasting superstar and host of the must-listen podcast, The Megyn Kelly Show. And there's been a sensational development today in the film set shooting case where Alec Baldwin accidentally killed his director of photography. The head of lighting on that movie, Rust, has filed a lawsuit over the fatal shooting of the cinematographer Helena Hutchins, alleging negligence that caused him severe emotional distress. In a statement on Facebook, he said, "I was standing shoulder to shoulder with Helena during this fatal shot that took her life and injured the director, Joel Souza. I was holding her in my arms while she was dying." Serge Svetnoy filed the lawsuit in Los Angeles, naming nearly 24 defendants associated with the film, including Baldwin, who was both star and producer. So, Megan, great to see you. This is another troubling turn in what sounds like an increasingly sad and messy tale. But the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what does this mean for Alec Baldwin?
Well, it was inevitable that he was going to get sued, and it may be inevitable. We'll see that he may be on the wrong end of criminal charges as well.
Really?
They haven't ruled anybody out.
Alec Baldwin could be criminally charged.
He definitely could be charged criminally. Yes, he could.
Wow.
Because not only does he have a role as the guy who pulled the trigger, but he's also a producer of the film. And there have been a lot of allegations that this was run negligently, that they tried to do it on a shoestring budget, that they didn't have the armorer, the person in charge of the guns, hired for enough money or enough days, and that she was very young, and so on. And so that could all fall on him, certainly civilly, as a producer. And when it comes to the criminal law, the case against Baldwin hasn't been ruled out, and here's why. All the standards on Hollywood movie sets, and I've read them myself, require that an actor not point a gun at another person on the set and actually say, every gun that's given to you should be treated as though it were loaded. And he didn't do that. And he did point then at this person. And I understand he was told that it was a, quote, cold gun, thus meaning not loaded with real bullets, just with dummy rounds, which can't fire. But there's been a history in Hollywood that, Brandon Lee died from believing that his gun only had blanks in it, but it actually projected a bullet out of it, and so on. And I can see the case being made that he should have known better. He should have followed. There are reports that he turned down the appropriate training that he was offered. And so I don't think he's off the hook. I don't think anybody's off the hook yet. In fact, now we learn that there was an armorer, this young woman who had worked on other movies, but there was also somebody else. His name is Seth Kenney, who provided some of the guns and some of the ammo. So the circle is broadening of who put live rounds in a box full of dummies. Dummies, again, are things that they're just lookalikes. They just look like bullets. So if you have a gun that's like a Colt 45 where you can see the bullets on a movie set, you don't want it to be empty. You want it to look like it's really loaded. That's where you get a dummy. A blank is slightly more dangerous because it actually can fire something. That's what you use if you want the sound of gunfire and smoke. And then there's an actual live round, which is a real bullet. And what happened here was somebody put live rounds in a box that was labeled dummies. And the question is, who did that? God. And who loaded it into the gun? Because the woman in charge, the young armorer, her lawyers are now saying this was sabotage. Somebody sabotaged either that box or the gun. And we don't, the sheriff's saying he doesn't have evidence of that yet, but it's getting uglier
and without wanting to be cynical, Megan, she would say that. I guess I would say. I mean, look, this head of lighting, does he have a strong case? Because he's right to say he was very close to being killed, and he's also right to say that the emotional trauma that he's gone through is significant.
I don't know that his individual lawsuits against all these people are going to hold up because everyone was acting in their respective roles as, the assistant director and as the armorer and the person, whatever. He sued, half of the staff. But I do think against the production company and the producers, if he can prove that there was negligence on the set when it came to safety, he might. If he was hurt physically, as far as I read his lawsuit, he was just in the line of fire and suffered emotional distress in having seen his friend die. But that is not normally a recognized cause of action. It's called negligent infliction of emotional distress. That's not normally a real claim. Intentional infliction of emotional distress can be a claim, and some jurisdictions require that you also have a physical injury in order to bring it. So I haven't looked at his actual complaint, but unless he suffered an actual physical injury, it's probably going to be an uphill battle.
Megan, I have been wondering a lot about this case and whether it's going to change the way that Hollywood fundamentally treats actors as producers. And what I mean by that is a lot of time you see actors be given these big titles, being named executive producer, when we all know they're not really. They're essentially trying to up their pay packet and be given the title in order to take a bigger claiming of the film's earnings. And you just look at this and you think, actually, actors will be thinking, is it worth it Because Alec Baldwin now, as you say, because he had this executive producer title, could be liable.
Well, whenever you take on something like that, you've got to be cognizant of the risks. But the law does make a distinction between someone who would be named an executive or a producer in name only versus those who are actually hands-on and have real responsibility. And I don't know what the truth was in this case for Alec Baldwin. I've heard it was the latter, that he didn't just get the title. He was an actively involved producer in the case. And if that's so, it's going to be a problem for him. Now, he's insured. This is going to be an insurance matter when all is said and done. But obviously, he's taken a reputational hit on this. And, no matter what happens, he wasn't supposed to point that gun at her. I'm not blaming Alec Baldwin. Whoever put the live round in that gun is ultimately responsible, and then the assistant director didn't check. But he's got some culpability here, and I think he would do better to come out and own that as opposed to just saying the set was perfectly run, there were no safety issues, all those claims are BS, and not taking any responsibility.
Do you have sympathy for him on any level, Megan?
Yeah, I mean, it would be horrible. It would be absolutely horrible to think that you had a cold gun and find out the hard way that there was a live round in there. So yeah, my heart goes out to all of them because, look, if there really was sabotage and somebody messed with the gun, and you never know why somebody might have done that or messed with the bullets, no sympathy for them. But people who are honestly working hard or who made a mistake because they were understaffed or overworked or, that's your worst nightmare, right? That something you did would result in another human being losing their life. This is one of the reasons why I didn't want to go into the medical profession. It's just, you and I are television anchors. Like, if we screw something up, we can come back on the air the next night and try to fix it. Not so when you're dealing with firearms, you're dealing with, operating tables. I mean, I'll give you one example. I was on the highway here the other day, and I'm driving behind one of those trucks that has all the cars loaded onto it. They're going to take these cars to the dealership or whatever. And you know how there's always that one car on the top back, and it's slanting down at you. And I was like, I think my job matters. That guy's job matters. That guy screws up in his job. Who knows how many people could be hurt? Me, you, we'll fix it. Fix it in post, as we always say.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more there, but for the grace of God, I would say. But fascinating analysis as ever, Megan, of a truly horrendous case, which I think will change things in Hollywood because it has to change. Yeah. Megyn Kelly, host of the Megyn Kelly podcast, thank you so much for being here tonight. We'll speak again next week. Coming up, Thomas Markle joins us exclusively from Mexico as he finds himself again at the centre of a global hurricane of headlines around his daughter Meghan. It's the interview that will make the Sussexes sit up, and it's coming just after 10 o'clock tonight. But next is the long-awaited fight back against woke kicking into gear. GBNews star Mark Dolan celebrates John Cleese's stand against cancel culture and the return of Professor Kathleen Stock. He'll break it all down in The Outsider next.
Evening. A lively Friday ahead tomorrow. Fairly gusty conditions. Most places seeing a few showers. Some places having a pretty soggy day. But some spots seeing a bit of sunshine as well. It's all courtesy of this area of low pressure that's moving in and ousting a little ridge of high pressure. These weather fronts bringing bands of rain overnight and the isobars squidging together, which is why the winds will be steadily picking up for most overnight. It's still pretty fine out there this evening across much of eastern England, but patchy rain for Wales, some heavy bursts of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and those winds continuing to strengthen. That all adds up to a pretty mild night as well. Early in the evening, we could drop down to single figures across parts of the east, but by dawn, most towns and cities will be at double digits. Most will start grey, though, with outbreaks of rain. Certainly for a good part of Scotland, some heavy rain here. The rain should ease from Northern Ireland, but quite a wet day for parts of northwest England, north and mid Wales. Showers across the south, but a good part of the day here will be dry. We should see some sunny spells, lifting the temperatures maybe to 15 degrees. Generally 12 to 14, but feeling cooler because it will be quite blustery, quite boisterous, particularly when the showers come along. Plenty more of those showers around through Friday evening as well, but they do gradually tend to fade, so it's turning drier as we head into the weekend. Clearer skies across northern Britain will allow a cooler start to Saturday. Still a bit of a breeze early on. quite a fresh breeze at times along those North Sea coasts, but generally a much calmer day on Saturday with sunny spells for parts of Scotland, northern England. Further south and west, quite a lot of cloud. Bit of drizzle is possible through parts of Northern Ireland. Temperatures still mostly around or a touch above average, and the winds will be lighter on Saturday, so it'll probably feel a little milder. Mostly light winds on Sunday could allow some fog to form. Fairly cloudy skies, but again, most places will be dry and bright. Goodbye.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk. Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
And we're back. Coming up, Thomas Markle joins me for a world-exclusive interview after everything that has gone down over the past 24 hours in court involving his daughter, described by the Sun newspaper today as Little Miss Forgetful. That is going to be a fascinating one. Plus, later in the show, we're joined by Rod Liddle in Uncancelled, and Mark Dolan too, who launches his brand new show tomorrow night here on GB News. Mark Dolan tonight from 9 p.m. till midnight. A couple of your questions in now, though. Lindsay on Twitter says, "Hi Dan, should Insulate Britain go to China and try lying in the roads there?" Do you know what? This is something that I have actually been propagating for some time. I even offered to help crowdfund the flight for Liam. What's his last name? You know, Liam from Insulate Britain. Because I just thought, actually, that's where they need to be. They need to be on those highways in China, and then let's see how they cope lying in the middle of the road. Have a feeling they'll probably be shot within a few minutes, because we actually have a video coming up later in the show of a bull that went loose in China. And let's just say it didn't survive for long. Anyway, tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. And let's kick off with the very first look at the front pages hot off the press. The I newspaper leads with the MP who told Rashford to focus on the day job has a second job. They're reporting that Natalie Ilfik earns £36,000 on top of her common salary for working 8 hours a week to chair the house building industry group. But my superstar panel are back with me now, the political commentator and writer Dominique Samuels, the former London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the broadcaster and author Amy Nicol. Now, from today, all carers in England are required to have 2 COVID jabs if they want to keep their jobs, leaving one manager in tears after she had to let go 6 of her people.
And I'm trying to hold it together now. is very difficult. We love each other here greatly. And to say goodbye to people and knowing that you're putting them into poverty is unbelievable. And it's affecting people's mental health as well as their physical well-being. People are working extra hours, we're tired, we're worn out. We've just come through a pandemic. Give us a break, Boris.
Despite the care sector already being short of 100,000 workers before the pandemic, as many as 60,000 more unvaccinated workers may now get the sack. Last week, an NHS worker went viral after she burst into tears after not being fired, after being fired for not being vaccinated.
That's the hardest thing you've ever had to do. Saying goodbye to everybody, all the people that I've cared for so long, the people I've worked with. Because it's been so emotional. This is so unfair. I can't believe what the bloody government is doing to us. I just don't get it. They don't understand. They think that what they're doing is to bear everybody, and it's not. It's just not. I'm literally heartbroken, and the residents in there are crying their eyes out. Oh, God. I can't do it. This is awful.
Just so hard to watch that. These poor people are already overworked, and now there are union concerns that hundreds of care homes may be forced to close for good because of staff shortages. So with this looming crisis, should we really be firing care workers who don't want to be vaccinated, Dominique?
No, obviously not. It's absolutely disgusting. It's disproportionate because you can still pass on COVID if you're vaccinated, and, you know, people can still catch it whether you're vaccinated or not at actually similar levels, according to various studies now. And specifically with regards to the care sector and even the NHS, care workers and NHS workers have very, very high levels of natural immunity, probably a greater proportion than that of the general population, because they've been on the front line dealing with coronavirus and dealing with these kinds of illnesses. So why aren't the government talking about natural immunity? And just lastly, how can you purport that there's a crisis in the care sector and a crisis in the NHS even, yet be fully prepared to get rid of tens of thousands of people? Logically, it doesn't make any sense. It's disproportionate, it's coercive, and I'd just like to say that the liberty of non-vaccination has been a legal principle in this country for hundreds of years, and there are also international conventions that set out the reprehensive nature of discriminating against people on the basis of a medical procedure. And we've always stood by that principle, so why now are we ripping it up? Makes no sense, disgusting, and it's completely the wrong move.
Sean Bailey?
I mean, watching your last VT is really tough. The pandemic's had a real effect on the country, but the government are trapped between a rock and a hard place. The one thing we do know, the vaccine makes the transmission of the disease much lower. And in the beginning, the government were torn to pieces when the death in the care sector was so high. So I think it's unfortunate, and I'm not a fan of passports and mandation, but care homes are having to ask themselves, are they happy to have staff working with some of the most vulnerable people in the country and they haven't given them the best chance of survival?
Yeah.
Give them the best.
But some of them are happy, aren't they, Dominique? And they're not being given the choice. It's a legal position. From today, these people have to be sacked.
Yeah, I mean, it's not being given the choice if the choice is that you lose your livelihood, despite the fact that you might have pre-immunity, which various studies show is very prevalent amongst the care sector and within the NHS. You might have already been previously infected with COVID. And the issue with the care homes is that the government was letting the elderly swarm into these care homes with no prior testing and no full sort of examination of the safety risks. But we know that the vaccine helps the individual who takes it, if they're vulnerable and elderly, with regards to hospitalisation and death. if it helped with reducing the spread, we wouldn't see record high cases in countries with very high levels of vaccination.
Well, let me bring Amy McCallum, because Amy, you have a different point of view on this.
Yeah, I feel again like we're getting really, really forgetful. So when we started, when we were at the beginning of the pandemic, what was the biggest issue? It was that we weren't protecting our care workers. We weren't providing PPE. And now we're providing them with we're putting them at the front of the queue for the best PPE there is. And now they're crying about it. How does that make sense? At the moment, I think we've been very spoiled. We have needed this vaccine since the beginning of the pandemic. At the moment, in the developing world, 1% is double vaccinated. Here, I think it's around 62%. We're offering full protection, and it's still people are saying, no, we have 81% vaccine uptake, yet 99% of the hospitalizations, the deaths this year.
So would you rather, Amy, can I ask you a question? Would you rather have the care homes completely unstaffed and the prospect that care homes have to be shut?
I think the NHS need to do? We need to talk about this vaccine hesitancy. We need to talk about why it's happening, and we need to eradicate it.
Yes, but we're not doing that.
No,
I agree with you there, but we're not doing that, are we?
I don't agree with any of that, because at the end of the day, the government and individuals within the society that look down on people that try and make medical choices for themselves, they were very happy for those people to be at risk, to be on the front line, to be in the care homes, unvaccinated when we needed them. But now the pandemic is at such levels that is a similar case fatality rates that of flu. Now we're very comfortable sacking tens of thousands of people in a sector that's already vulnerable on the basis of a medical procedure.
Final word to you, Sean.
That's not correct. Dominique talked about the principle of choice. If I was vulnerable and elderly in a care home, I'd want the choice of being protected. If someone makes a decision not to take the vaccination, that's their decision.
The vaccine protects you.
But they've left me at risk because their chances of giving me the vaccine have been...
But they are vaccinated.
I mean, this isn't rooted in reality, though.
But if they are vaccinated, the point is this, isn't it? If you're in a care home, you need to have the highest level of protection, and that's what they're aiming at. Is it a perfect situation? Of course it isn't. But if you are working at home and you put people at risk and they don't know about that risk, that is also unfair.
Sorry, can I just say this quickly?
Okay, quick final word to you, Dominique.
Sorry, with the greatest of respect, Sean, I fully understand where you're coming from, but I think some of the issues that we've seen in care homes over the years are more important. For example, elderly people being neglected, being starved, being mistreated because of the crisis of staffing and not having a quality of people in the sector. What this policy will do is it will drive those people away. And I wonder if anyone's actually asked the elderly people whether or not they want
many
to
of them were in tears. So
because of staffing issues.
We've got to go now, but many of them were in tears today at the homes because they are losing some of their favourite carers who they have relied on for years and years. But Dominic Samuel, Sean Bailey, Amy Nicole, do stand by, because in the next hour my superstar panel will be revealing tonight's Greatest Britain and Julian Jackass. It's just after 10 p.m. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Still to come. After Harry and Meghan's exposure in court, the Duchess's estranged father, Thomas Markle, responds to bombshell revelations sparked by her letter to him, which we now know she expected to be leaked. The man at the heart of this scandal is live with me in just a few minutes. Should killer dog breeds be banned? We'll debate that and much more of today's top talking points in the media buzz. Plus, get a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Will voters be able to forgive Tory sleaze? Rod Liddell is uncancelled at 10:40. And we'll reveal today's Greatest Britain and Julian Jackass. But before all that, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Very good evening to you. The latest GB News headlines this hour. Millions of people have observed a 2-minute silence this morning to remember the men and women who lost their lives in conflict. Marked each year on the 11th hour of the 11th day, the 11th month, people across the UK pause to honour those who died in war. And you saw in those pictures there the Duchess of Cornwall joining hundreds of veterans at Westminster Abbey this morning. It's also been confirmed this afternoon Her Majesty the Queen will attend the Remembrance Day service at the Cenotaph on Sunday. In other news today, Border Force officers have now intercepted at least 25 migrant boats attempting to cross the Channel today to the UK, each vessel carrying up to 50 people on board. It's been reported that 4 small boats also made it to shore, landing on Deal Beach in Kent. There's been an influx of migrants trying to reach the UK in recent days, with 1,200 crossing the English Channel in the last 24 hours. A 9th person has died after the crowd crush at the Astro World Festival in Houston, Texas last week, and a warning, some flashing images coming up. 22-year-old college student Bharti Shahani was described as a shining star in her community, and she was about to graduate from Texas University. Hundreds were injured in the crowd surge as the rapper Travis Scott performed. A criminal investigation is now ongoing. Yorkshire County Cricket Club has confirmed that the chief executive there, Mark Arthur, has now resigned. That follows a report that found that the former Yorkshire player Azim Rafiq was a victim of racial harassment and bullying there. The club's board say they're now looking for new leadership that will be vital in driving the change the club needs. And ahead of the final day of the COP26 summit in Glasgow, the President, Alec, has agreed that time is running out, but he said talks are now focused on finding a way forward. However, a former Labour leader says delegates need to salvage what they can from COP26, adding the conference is unlikely to deliver everything that had been hoped for.
I think the challenge is the science, and the science tells us we've got to halve emissions this decade by 2030, and frankly, not enough countries have stepped up to do what they needed to do. And the scientists tell us we're about 1/5 of the way there, which is just not nearly far enough.
And some good news for Christmas at least. The latest biodegradable and sustainable product that sparkles is now available to us. Glitter. Ahead of the festive season, researchers from Cambridge University have found a way to make non-toxic vegan glitter from the cell walls of plants. Apparently the glitter we ordinarily use is not environmentally friendly, as it's made from toxic materials and contributes to plastic pollution. You're bang up to date. I'm back in an hour.
And we're back, and let's cross straight now to Rosarito, Mexico, where we're joined exclusively by the Duchess of Sussex's father, Thomas Markle, who is yet again at the centre of headlines all over the world today. Thomas, great to speak to you. Your relationship with Meghan, once again, is all anyone seems to be talking about. What do you make of this?
Well, which part are we talking about now? So, finally, the truth is coming out. A lot of the truth is coming out, and thank God for Jason Knopf. I mean, I'll be happy to bring him over here and take him to Sizzler, and we'll enjoy a steak and a nice little dinner together. He's certainly putting things in the right perspective.
Well, yes, and so let's break it down, Thomas. So Jason Knopf, he was your daughter's director of communications, worked very closely with her at the time, and now as a result of this court case is dropping a whole load of truth bombs, which actually suggests that Meghan wasn't entirely honest in the statement that she made previously to the court. Were you surprised by that? Do you believe that your daughter was just forgetful, or do you think this was a deliberate attempt to mislead the court?
I really can't speak too much about this, but I think that she was trying to deceive. I think she was telling lies. but I can't really speak about this particular thing too much. So.
And I understand that. There are a couple of issues, Thomas, that I wanted to discuss, speaking generally. And the first is that Meghan seems very happy to slag off and to offer up some quite negative information about your two other children, Thomas Markle Jr. and Samantha. Were you disappointed by that?
I was very disappointed by it. Actually, that's sort of what pushed us all apart. Meghan wanted me to stop talking to both my older children, both Samantha and Tom, and I can't do that. They're my children. I love all my children, even when they're not performing well, and even when they're bad, I still love them. And she wasn't making any effort to reach out and try to be friendly. My daughter Samantha reached out to her and just got a phone hook hung up on her. So, yeah, that was very disappointing.
And the information that she provided about Sam, who is someone who I've got to know, and I think she's a good person, was particularly nasty. Is Meghan correct when she says that she had no real relationship with Samantha or Thomas Markle Jr.? Because, for example, she did attend
not
Samantha's graduation.
That's right. But even before that, when she was growing up, Samantha would be carrying her around, would be taking her to the duck park, would be taking her for ice cream. She had a relationship with both Tom and Samantha. And she can't deny it. There are photographs of it. You can see the photographs of them together. So for her to, I mean, they drifted apart after Meghan became about 10 or 11 because they had left and gone to other states for jobs and so forth. So they drifted apart a bit there, but there was no real hostility at that point. So. The fact that she wanted me to stop talking to them because they were saying things about her, something like I said, they're in their 50s. I can't control anyone in their 50s. I certainly can't control my kids in their 50s because they're telling me what to do in their 50s. They tell me now what to do.
Indeed they do. Thomas, were you aware before yesterday that senior royal aides had encouraged Meghan to travel to Mexico to visit you, but she actually turned down the opportunity because she said that she worried it would become a media frenzy?
What I can say about that, and I don't want to go too far with this, is I can say thank God for Jason Knopf. And I think him coming forward tells a lot of the story. No one did help me down here at all, and I had a rough time for for at least a year and a half. I had a really rough time, and very disappointed that they did that. So.
That she says she doesn't know about the town where you live. She's never been to your house. It seems like it would have been a great opportunity for her to come and get to know where her dad's living and also maybe bring the bloke who she's going to end up marrying.
And I invited them down several times, and if you could see, I don't know if you ever saw this, but there's a beautiful ocean outside my window here, and I'm right on the ocean. It's a beautiful house. It's very comfortable. The people are wonderful down here, and it's a perfect place to live. And I invited them to come down several times. And I'm very disappointed that Harry, wanting to marry my daughter, wouldn't have had the good sense to come down here and ask for her hand. I mean, someone who is royalty, I would think, would want to go by the book and do things properly, but apparently it didn't matter to him. So that was a disappointment as well.
Thomas, she described you as reclusive. Is that fair?
No, No, I am somewhat reclusive, but not totally. I mean, I value my privacy at times, but I certainly like to be involved with my family. I worked 50 years in a studio surrounded by people, so it's sort of a time in my life where I don't want to be surrounded by quite as many people, that's all. But I certainly always want my family. Especially now, the older I get, the more I need my family. So I'm not that reclusive that I didn't want her here, or Harry for that matter.
Do you know the saddest thing for me, Thomas, reading through everything that has emerged, is that Meghan does admit that she actually had a great relationship with you up until the moment that she met Prince Harry.
That's exactly what I say. I say the exact same thing. I don't know. I don't know whether Harry had an effect on her or what caused this to happen. But it became, yeah, a separation. Suddenly, I became ghosted. That's a British word I'm learning now, ghosted. But everybody, it's not just me, everybody in the family, both sides of the family have been ghosted by her now. Now, I don't know, obviously she must have told Harry something and was trying to make sure that none of us would change the story. I don't know what other reason she'd have. If she's ashamed of us, she's foolish because we're all fairly successful. We've all succeeded in our.
You're an Emmy winner.
Yeah, and that's something I'm proud of course.
You should be. Of course, you should.
I'd like to have a few more.
Thomas, when you received the letter from Meghan and it was addressed to you as Daddy, were you suspicious? Because we now know that Meghan purposefully referred to you as that because she suspected the letter would find its way into the media.
All I can say about that is she's always called me Daddy, and I really can't pursue that too much further than that.
I understand that.
I'm sure you understand.
Of course I do. The Sun newspaper, Thomas, today has reported that it was the Queen who actually recommended that Meghan write the letter to you. And this was in a conversation when Meghan and Harry were staying at the home of Prince Charles. I just wonder, I know you can't talk about the court case, but I just wonder, Thomas, if you just wish that the Queen or Prince Charles had reached out to you to try and sort this out, rather than suggest that Meghan write the letter.
I have the greatest respect for the Queen and for the royal family, especially the Queen, and I don't think she would ever recommend anyone to write a letter like I received. Yes, it would have been wonderful if they wanted to reach out to me, but I'm sure she didn't encourage Meghan to write a letter like that. Here again, I have to back off and say I can't say too much more about that.
I understand that. Thomas, I want you to react to a couple of pieces of footage from Meghan and Harry over the past 48 hours. Some suggestion that they've been on this publicity drive to deflect from the revelations in court. But have a look at why your daughter described why it was so important to her to pursue this action.
I won the case, and this issue, frankly, has been going on when I had no children at all. Melody, I now have 2 children, as you know, so it's an arduous process, but again, it's just me standing up for what's right, which I think is important across the board, be it in this case or in the other things we've been talking about today. At a certain point, no matter how difficult it is, if you know the difference between right and wrong, you must stand up for what's right, and that's what I'm doing.
Your reaction, Thomas?
Well, what is she standing up for? I'm missing a point here. I don't know what she's standing up for. And the other thing is that she wrote a letter to me. I own that letter. here again, this is an area I don't know whether I should be talking about or not, but I understand that the letter wasn't a private one, so.
Now, no, Thomas, of course, that she had spoken to Jason Knauf about the drafting of the letter. He was involved, and that she expected the letter to go public. So, as you say, thank goodness for this witness statement from Jason Knauf to clear that up.
Exactly. I had no idea that all of this would happen around that, but apparently it has, and I just have to be cautious about what I say about this.
Let me ask you about Finding Freedom, which was that awful hagiography by this weird little man called Omid Scobie, who seems to be a little bit obsessed with your daughter, Thomas. Did you know that Meghan had briefed Jason Knauf to include information in that book, despite denials from both her and Scobie that they were in cahoots together?
I was sure that she had a lot to do with that book, that it wasn't just Jason Scobie or Scobie. Actually, I prefer calling him Scobie. But
let's go with that.
I hope to God he's not writing the book for Harry. And I hope Harry doesn't write the book. As a matter of fact, I think he's a fool if he's writing a book.
Are you worried about what he might say about you in the book, Thomas?
No, anybody can say anything they want about me. I am who I am. I'm never going to change. I'm going to be the way I am. If Harry, I'm worried that Harry is going to harm his family. You have to understand, the way I feel right now is that Harry and Meghan have harmed so many people, and so many. They've harmed the entire royal family. They've harmed my family. They've harmed Doria's family. They've harmed the English people. They've gone out of their way to harm people. It makes no sense. I don't know what they do or what they're doing. They seem to keep to themselves where they're living now, and they must have the worst PR team in the world.
That's for sure. Well, I think they do it themselves, don't they? They don't listen to advice, Thomas.
Well, well, the other thing is like Oprah Winfrey. They made Oprah Winfrey look like a fool. They lied to her about 13 times,
yeah, but she didn't press them. She didn't press them, and it's a journalist's job to seek the truth. And she didn't try and seek the truth. She accepted the propaganda.
I agree. I totally agree with that. I think she sat there quietly and nodded her head approvingly. It was crazy.
Thomas, I want you to react to a couple of comments from Prince Harry over the past 24 hours as well. He's claimed that the term Megxit is misogynist. Have a look at this and I'll get you to react off the back.
More than 70% of the hate speech about my wife on Twitter could be traced to fewer than 50 accounts. Perhaps the most troubling part of this is the number of British journalists interacting with and amplifying the hate and the lies. The term Megxit was or is a misogynistic term. And it was created by a troll, amplified by royal correspondence, and it grew and grew and grew onto mainstream media.
Thomas, do you think there's anything sexist about the term Megxit?
No, I do not. And here again, you know, I defer to Harry's ignorance, and I mean, I don't know what happened to him. Maybe he was dropped on his head as a baby or something. But the bottom line is everything he comes out of his mouth is always kind of stupid. So here I go. That gets me in trouble with them, of course, but it's true. He rides a bicycle. He rides a bicycle around where he lives every day. I understand they're going to take the training wheels off soon. So
Well, he does need to grow up, because if he was mature at all, he would have spoken to you long ago, like any grown man. I also wanted to play you this clip where Harry predicts that he actually was aware of the so-called insurrection at the US Capitol on the 6th of January, Thomas. What did you make of that?
I saw that. I thought it was a joke. And the idea that he called and warned them that that was going to happen is ridiculous. The idea that they're both writing letters to the government. First of all, royals aren't supposed to do that, so they have to decide if they're going to be royals or stop being royals. But
yes, because of course your daughter Thomas is also communicating with US senators, introducing herself as the Duchess of Sussex and campaigning for paid parental leave. What did you make of that?
Well, I think it's ridiculous for her to be doing that, and you know, I'm certainly in favor of the paid parental leave, but I think she should be, if she's really interested in doing that, she should be out making speeches rather on her own and going and trying to help families do that. Maybe until it happens where they get enough money to take care of kids. Why doesn't her charity help some of these families, rather than her talking about demanding the government to do it right away? It's going to take the government a while to do it. So, where's Archwell? Where's the money from their charities going? So far, their charities haven't done anything.
No.
So
they seem to be paying for a very expensive mansion in Santa Barbara, I think. Thomas, I guess the most important point over the past 24 hours is that the public has learned something that the Queen knows, because she's, of course, said recollections may vary when talking about Meghan and Harry's Oprah interview, something that I've known for many years in my reporting on your daughter. Harry and Meghan don't seem to tell the truth. Does your daughter have the capacity to lie?
Well, never quite as much as she is now, or has been now. Every day there's a new lie. It's become a joke. It's turning into a joke among all the papers. Well, you know as well as I do. You see it in the papers every day. She tells some new lie. I mean, it started with the Archbishop. Yeah. She telling Oprah that she got married 3 days before by the Archbishop. It started there, and God knows what she tells Harry about. And I think the other thing is that ridiculous story about when we were leaving, when I take her to dinner or take her to lunch, that we had to rub our pennies together to get a full meal. That's crazy.
Yeah, you were a very successful Hollywood lighting dude. Thomas,
yeah, no, I mean, go ahead.
Thomas, my final question to you: do you think Meghan may have committed perjury with the statements that she made?
Well, this is a legalese question you're asking me, and I don't know that I'm capable of answering a legalese question. It might be perjury in the United States. I have no idea, but I don't think there's any courtroom in the world where you're allowed to lie. No. So that's about all I can say about that.
Well, look, Thomas, I think you're a great man. As I've said many times before, you've told the truth through this whole thing. You've admitted when you made a mistake. And I think given how charitable Meghan and Harry say that they are, why on earth would you not forgive the man who brought you into the world, who paid for your education, who raised you? I will never understand it, Thomas.
From your lips to God's ears, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
We'll speak again very soon. Thomas Markle, live from Mexico. Thank you so much. Coming up, will Tory sleaze scandal sound the death knell for Boris? Rod Liddle debates that in Uncancelled. But next is the long-awaited fight back against woke kicking into gear. GB News star Mark Dolan celebrates John Cleese's stand against cancel culture and the return of Professor Catherine Stock. That's in The Outsider next.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Mark Dolan is tonight's Outsider. And the fight back against woke is on. This week we've seen comedy icon John Cleese snub the Cambridge Union over their, quote, woke rules, which saw another speaker, art historian and television presenter Andrew Graham Dixon banned over a Hitler impression. John, of course, perfected his own over 50 years ago in that famous Monty Python sketch and then later in Fawlty Towers. And on Monday, Professor Kathleen Stock, who was hounded out of the University of Sussex over comments on gender identity, landed a job at a new institution committed to protecting free thought. So, Mark Dolan, finally, some people are fighting back against this academic madness, and we love to see it, right?
It's wonderful news, and I can't overstate this enough, Dan. We are at war. Now, the famous political philosopher Edmund Burke said the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And let me tell you that extreme political correctness, hard left wokeism, which is what this is borderline evil because it seeks to rewrite our history, to change our language. It's illiberal, it's cruel, it's illogical, and it's wrong. And I credit John Cleese for using his platform. He is too famous and too rich and has too much of a legacy to be cancelled, the same way that J.K. Rowling, who has spoken out perfectly reasonably on gender ideology, has used her platform. She's pretty much the second best-selling author behind God, so she can't be cancelled. We've seen it with the comedian Dave Chappelle, who discussed trans issues in his stand-up comedy show. So these people are heroes, and history will remember them very fondly for speaking out and for calling out this nonsense. And I'm very disappointed by others, the likes of Lorraine Kelly, who we both know very well, ITV broadcaster, a huge talent, of course, bit of a legend. But she interviewed the Professor Kathleen Stock, who, of course, has now lost her job, hounded out of Sussex University. She interviewed her on her daytime TV show, and then afterwards sent a tweet effectively throwing Kathleen Stock under the bus, challenging the very reasonable things that Stock had said. So there are a few winners and a few losers when it comes to this battle, Dan.
Yes, although Mark Dolan, you're a very naughty man, aren't you? You're a very naughty man. You cannot say something negative about Lorraine Kelly around this man. I mean, what are you trying to do? Get me cancelled?
Look, I know,
No.
I know she's your best mate, and she's a true broadcasting legend. And here's the point, Dan. I obviously defend her right to say it. I just wonder whether she was mindful of the kind of physical and verbal attacks that this academic has faced, purely for pointing out that there are two biological genders.
I completely understand what you're saying. I did go back and watch the interview, actually, between Lorraine and Kathleen Stock, and I thought the interview, what was broadcast, was actually very respectful. And they both said, we know that we disagree with each other, and isn't that great? Because we're having a civil conversation. And my issue with the universities, where I completely agree with you, is they don't believe that Kathleen Stock should even have a platform to express, by the way, a point of view which is scientific fact, in my opinion. But Mark Dolan...
well, no, that's the point, Dan. I hate to interrupt you.
Yes,
I hate to interrupt you, but that's the key point, right? Which is that I was reading in the Telegraph about Kathleen Stock today, and it talked about the reaction to her views. And you mentioned the word opinion. These are not opinions or views. It is a biological scientific fact. It's taught at GCSE biology and A-level. And Professor Robert Winston went viral on Question Time on the BBC, saying that every cell in the body has a biological sex and it cannot be changed. He said, I'll get hate mail for saying this, but that's why we've got to die on this hill, Dan. And I totally agree. I love Lorraine, and let's have all views, of course, but let's not rewrite the rules of science. And as you know, this new university is coming along, an anti-woke university in Austin, in Texas. And this is all part of the fight back. The BBC have cancelled their contract with Stonewall, their diversity champion scheme, which is a brainwashing exercise at best. So the fight is on. But do you know the biggest development of all is a brand new current affairs channel called GBNews, Dan. This program, your incredible show,
GBNews News.
Our network.
I've got GBNews News. Mark Dolan tonight. This is exciting. Launches tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Mark, wow, you going it alone. I love it.
I'm really excited, Dan. I will pick up where you left off. I'm loving your new look show, and we're going to be just as pacey, just as fiery and punchy. We've got that acting legend joining me tomorrow night. He is Bruce Jones. He played Les Battersby, the famous taxi driver in Coronation Street. This is a guy that's had a problem with drink. He's been bankrupt about 11 times, but he is a survivor, and he tells me his story tomorrow night.
Oh, I cannot wait. And Mark, I have to say, thank you so much. You did the most epic job over the past 2 weeks, and I'm incredibly grateful because it gave me just a little bit of time in order to plan this new show. So I really appreciate it. And I will be watching tomorrow night. Mark Dolan tonight, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, GB News, 9 p.m. till midnight. But coming up, what gives green extremists the right to tell us whether we can have children? We'll debate that in the Media Buzz and bring you more of the front pages. And we'll also crown the final Greatest Britain and Union Jackass of the Week. Who have my panel nominated tonight? Stay tuned to find out.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints over a drink we have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Rod Little on the way, but let's return now to tomorrow's news tonight in our Media Buzz. The front pages have just been delivered. The Metro tomorrow splashing on the 999 calls crisis. Most heart attack and stroke victims are waiting nearly an hour for an ambulance due to emergency services being swamped with calls. That's according to new data. And what an absolute disgrace that is. In the Eye, MP Natalie Elphicke, I spoke about this earlier, told Marcus Rashford to focus on the day job and reference to the Footballers' National School Meals campaign. But it turns out that she has a second job herself and earns £36,000 on top of her salary as an MP. Daily Telegraph says Russia may invade Ukraine. That's a warning from the US, who have privately briefed their EU counterparts on a possible military operation as tens of thousands of Russian troops amass near the border. COP climate targets are too weak to avoid disaster, leads The Guardian. Key architects of the Paris Agreement have warned world leaders will have to return to the negotiating table next year, although actually we're looking at the Times there, which says MPs fill pockets using rent expenses loophole. 14 MPs are using the parliamentary expenses scheme to rent homes while letting out properties that they own in London for at least £10,000 a year. But let's go back to the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. The political commentator Dominique Samuels, former London Tory mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the broadcaster and author Amy Nicol. So why do green extremists think they have the right to tell us whether we can have children? I'm serious about this. Have a look.
Choosing to have a smaller family is the best thing you can do to take the heat off the planet. Because if we can meet that unmet choice and right for safe modern family planning, for the number of kids you have, whether you have kids, that is also not just brilliant for people and for their well-being, but it's also great for the well-being of the planet. It will save more carbon dioxide than all onshore and offshore wind power combined. It's the number 2 solution to climate change.
Ugh, none of your business, mate. I mean, Sean Bailey, is this the 21st century Britain version of China's communist one-child policy?
I would say good luck with that. Not even a Chinese government could make people have one child. And I think the other thing to be said as well, there's a feeling that we're now being dictated by people who think they know better than us. And that is really annoying. And if you want people to help green the planet, say the planet, you've got to bring people with you, not dictate to them.
Yeah.
And the final thing I'll say, he's missed the boat. If there's anything that makes people have smaller families, it's house prices. And here in London, we are suffering quite badly from house prices. So,
Amy Nicol, seeing I'm childless, does that mean I can catch as many flights around the world and eat loads and loads and loads and loads of meat without feeling any green guilt? Not that I do anyway.
Well, do you know what? I looked at this last week because we had a little conversation about it. And the number one thing you can do to damage the environment, number one, on a personal level, is having more children. And to be honest, who wouldn't rather have less kids and a Range Rover and 2 holidays a year?
That's just
Dominique?
so materialistic. And it's just not human. And I mean that in the nicest of ways.
You wouldn't. You really wouldn't.
As individuals, we do not find true happiness in the material things that we buy. I would love a lovely sports car, but at the end of the day, what's going to make me feel fulfilled as an individual is having a family and having people around that I love and can care for. And what we're in our society at the moment, it's very materialistic. It says the way to be happy is to purchase things, to be really rich, and to have loads of followers on Instagram and not have a lovely family that loves and cares for you. And for green activists to be trying to dictate dictate what people do, especially in Western countries as well, where we already do have very small amounts of children. Why should we have to transform our lives and bear the brunt of this when there are other countries that should be held accountable more than we are? And this is the issue with this environmentalism. It's eco-communism wrapped up in this, you know, faux care for the environment.
I know, and the baby blimp can take a running jump as far as I'm concerned. Now, I spoke about this earlier. Are you ready to see a real-life bull in a China shop or a Chinese shop, if you want to be technical? This is the shocking moment. A woman in Yulin City was knocked off her city by a buffalo. Have a look at this. It's quite shocking footage. Boom! There you go. And the bull then went on to storm through a shop, to the shock of the people inside. We'll see that in just a moment. We had to see that moment once more, didn't we? There, look at this, look at this. Now, 7 people were injured as the buffalo rampaged through the city before being shot. Police say the buffalo had broken free from a cart while food was being unloaded at a nearby stall.
He was not messing around.
No,
Literal bull in a China shop.
Literal bull in a China shop. Amy Nicole, Sean Bailey, Dominic Samuels, do stand by. Put your thinking caps on because I need you to nominate for Our Greatest Britain and Union Jackass in just a moment, please, which we will do very, very shortly. I'm looking forward to seeing who my panel have nominated. And how can the Tories win back public trust after these current sleaze scandals? I'll ask Rod Liddle in Uncancelled just after we take a look at what's coming up in Monday's show.
Coming up Monday on Dan Wootton Tonight, Lucy Moon star and voice of the people Carol McGiffin will give her no-nonsense, common-sense take on the world in Uncancelled. US talk radio firebrand and California governor candidate Larry Elder discusses the culture wars on both sides of the Atlantic and the Republicans' route back to the White House. Plus, positive professor Carol Sikora is here to dispel the COVID doom and gloom promoted elsewhere in the mainstream media. GB News star Neil Oliver returns as the outsider, and I'll bring you a first look at the front pages with my superstar panel, crown the day's greatest Britain and Union Jackass, and debate a topic important to you in the clash. That's Dan Wootton Tonight from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Monday to Thursday on GB News.
But it's time now for Uncancelled. And you know, this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And will most have said media's obsession with the return of so-called Tory sleaze potentially bring about the end of the Conservative Party's 11 years in power. My guest tonight, Rod Liddle, has a warning for Boris Johnson that the scandalous actions of MPs like Geoffrey Cox and Owen Paterson threaten to undo all the hard work the party has put into appealing to the everyman and smashing the red wall. In his column today for The Sun, Rod writes, once again, it shows astonishing complacency and arrogance. One rule for us, no rules for him. Boris had better start getting his house in order or his majority will vanish, and rightly. Rod Liddle, great to have you back. I've missed you these past couple of weeks. And you're on fighting form against the Tories here, Rod. So you think this issue has crossed over? This isn't a Westminster bubble thing?
No, it's definitely crossed over. As I was mentioning, I was out in a pub only a couple of nights ago up here where I am, in Teesside, and people are talking about it. And it's a bit more complex than simply saying that he will lose his majority, because there are a couple of things at work here. First is that when the Red Wall voters up here went down to the polls and elected the Conservative Party in 2019, they did so with their fingers over their noses a little bit, rightly, because they think that the Conservative Party is a party of rich people and the party of sleaze. And I have to say, they're not wrong. But what this does is it gradually erodes any confidence that you can have in Boris Johnson, insofar as anybody does have any confidence in Boris Johnson. I think first the appalling decision to not support the suspension of Owen Paterson, which was clearly, obviously, a terrible, terrible mistake by the government. But because they did that, it's now open season, and Geoffrey Cox is just the first of what I suspect are many, many, many Conservative MPs who are coining it and not giving the constituents the benefit of their time. And that's what it is. I mean, there is no other job in the world, I don't think, where you could say, look, I'm not going to take any holiday leave, but I'm going to go to a nice Caribbean spot for 10 days to earn some cash. And actually to earn some cash, incidentally, being paid by people who are directly opposed to the government. That's what I'd like to do. I hope you don't mind. I mean, it is just bizarre. And while the principle matters, the other thing that matters a lot is the amounts of money involved. It is all very well if you are sitting down in London and saying, well, how can one possibly expect to get by on £81,000 a year, when the average wage up here in my neck of the woods is £26,000 a year. People do not think that 81,000 quid is, is just chicken feed. They think it's a substantial wage and would be very, very grateful for it indeed. So it rubs people up the wrong way on that issue as well. And of course, it just cements in the mind the idea that this is the party of slaves, which it is. I mean, I don't think that
Rod,
with great respect to Sean Bailey, who's a nice bloke, it is the party of slaves.
OK, but Rod, how do you deal with the second job issue then? Because are you really going to tell an MP who's also a nurse or a doctor and they want to keep up their qualifications that they're unable to do any shifts in the local hospital, for example?
Work schedules. So long as Geoffrey Cox is doing the amount of work which he's meant to be doing for his constituents, I don't have a great problem with it. I don't have a great problem with Boris Johnson writing occasional pieces for the Telegraph. I don't have a problem with a couple of doctors who are in the House continuing to practice, so long as the constituents come first. And if they don't come first, they should be voted out. I think that the case of Geoffrey Cox is so severe that there should be a recall on his constituency in Torridge and West Devon. And that if the public there, if 10% of them wish to have a by-election, they should have one. Because I think it's that serious. I mean, to miss, he's spoken once in the House of Commons in a year, once. And he's been voted by proxy from a very agreeable island. It just isn't on,
No, and it's very interesting to me that you are convinced that this has crossed over. And actually, Rod, I don't take the polling all that seriously. You have to look at trends over a period of time. So I'm loath to mention this, but I will say all of the polls this week, all of them, show a significant drop for the Tories and a bit of a bump for Labour. And in a couple of them, they are ahead. So what you're saying, anecdotally, where you are in Teesside, is matching up with the polling trend.
It is. And actually, I think there was a poll done in about May, maybe April this year, which looked at the red wall seats, particularly in the northeast of England. And it showed that already, because of the various stuff, some of which was about sleaze, some of which was about handing contracts to your friends, the Tories would lose 17 of those seats which they won so spectacularly back in 2019. So this was already in train. This just adds to it, This just adds to it. It adds to it in the public mind. It erodes confidence in the government. And it rightly erodes confidence in the government. Don't think I would be prepared to vote for the Conservative Party for the second time in my life, when the next election comes along.
Brilliant analysis as ever. Rod Little, we'll speak again next week. Thank you so much. But it's now time to reveal today's greatest Briton and Union Jackass. Superstar panel back for this. Political commentator Dominique Samuels, former London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and the author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. Amy, let's kick off with you, but actually, I think we've got a little video for your greatest Britain. So let's take a quick look at it, and then you can talk on the back.
Okay, let's do it. But you'll see that greatest certainty for business. You're meant to be in bed, darling. It's bedtime, darling. Pop back to bed. I'll come and see you in a second. I'll come and see you in a minute, okay? Sorry, everybody. Yeah, Nanny will take you down to bed. Thanks, Nana.
Sorry, why have you chosen my least favourite person in the world?
I have not chosen your least favourite person. I have chosen the child.
Oh, okay.
The gate crasher, 3-year-old Neve. for interrupting Jacinda Ardern.
Yes, how cute.
How
cute.
She was doing that. And also, what I
That wasn't planned at all, was it?
Well,
no.
And also, is nanny, grandma, or the hired help?
Oh, yeah, right.
It's the
yeah,
posh
right.
nanny, isn't
I've
it?
never seen more of a setup. Don't be so naive, Amy. Sean, save me. You're great as Britain.
I have chosen the Queen. In fact, that she's going to turn up to the Cenotaph. But let me tell you why. The serious thing, she's showing that some things are about the team, some things are bigger than a person. And even though she's the Queen, she realises this is a real moment for the country. And as a society, we always celebrate youth, and I want to celebrate older people to show that there is a stalwart there. There's someone who said, let's get this done. Let's make sure we represent the nation properly. That is her job. She's turned up for her job, and young people could learn a lot from the Queen because she's dedicated to something that's even bigger than her, and that's the country.
God save the Queen.
And love that, Sean. Great choice. Dominique, your nomination?
Mine is just care workers. I feel as though they've had a really rough deal this week, perhaps unnecessarily, and I think NHS workers have received preferential treatment due to the fact that the vaccine mandate for them is April 2022. They've worked so hard throughout this pandemic in a sector that has struggled for years and years and years, even before this crisis, and I want to give them a shout out and just say thank you for everything that you've done.
OK, well, good choices, but I'm sorry, the winner is obvious. Well done, Sean Bailey. It's the Queen. She's our greatest Britain. Thank God she's back on Sunday. We need that. Union Jackass time now, though. Amy Nicole, I actually am quite shocked by your choice, but explain.
Why are you shocked by this? So my nomination for a Union Jackass is Ben Wallace, the man who voted to let Owen Paterson off the hook, who has criticised and compared a few Labour MPs getting drunk on a plane to Gibraltar, who hasn't been there, to stealing.
Amy, they were going to an official Remembrance Day event in Gibraltar.
It's hardly urinating
and
in the
they
Cenotaph,
reportedly got trolleyed on the plane.
Yeah, they weren't
and
drunk when
you've
they turned
chosen
up.
the Tory who decided to condemn that.
I
That
feel
is
it
a
may be a
choice.
bit of point scoring to distract Dan. I don't know about you.
It might well be, but it's still bad that it was an official event, and apparently one of them had to be wheelchaired out.
She was on medication.
She's claimed it was medication, but you know I'm going to take that with a pinch of salt. Sean Bailey, your Union Jackass.
So I've picked universities that are blacklisting people. The Cambridge Union is leading the charge. They've decided to draw up a blacklist, which they'll be sharing with other universities. I think this is ridiculous, that we're generating an intellectual fragility there. Students are meant to study, they're meant to challenge, and a blacklist like this is ridiculous. And anybody who doubts this, one of the key people that universities have been blacklisting is feminists. Now, why we would drive feminists out of the debate is amazing to me. And who's next? Who watches The Watchmen? I think this is ridiculous.
Well, we're all at threat. We're all at threat. Dominique, your nomination for Union Jackass.
This is one that I'm very, very passionate about. I've nominated Houston rapper Travis Scott. Now, I love Travis Scott's music. I loved his latest album, Astro World. That was one of my favourite ones. But it's now time to just say we need to stop worshipping these celebrities. He's extremely irresponsible. At his concert, where 8 people died and hundreds were injured, he was irresponsible. He should have stopped the show.
Completely
Instead,
shocking.
he encouraged rioting, pushing and shoving, and that led to many people dying. So he needs to be held accountable, and I hope he undergoes criminal charges for his behaviour at that festival.
Strong words from Dominique Samuels, although I have to say it's the double for Sean Bailey tonight. The winner of my Union Jackass is the Cambridge Union. Come on, you can't have a blacklist at a university when you're meant to be teaching free speech and everything about the world. But what a brilliant superstar panel tonight. His debut, Sean Bailey, thank you so much. Thank you too to Dominique Samuels and Amy Nicole. Have an amazing weekend. I've loved your company this week. Headliners is up next. I'm back on Monday. Good night.
Evening. A lively Friday ahead tomorrow. Fairly gusty conditions. Most places seeing a few showers. Some places having a pretty soggy day. But some spots seeing a bit of sunshine as well. It's all courtesy of this area of low pressure that's moving in and ousting a little ridge of high pressure. These weather fronts bringing bands of rain overnight and the isobars squidging together, which is why the winds will be steadily picking up for most overnight.
It's still pretty fine out there this evening across much of eastern England, but patchy rain for Wales, some heavy bursts of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and those winds continuing to strengthen. That all adds up to a pretty mild night as well. Early in the evening, we could drop down to single figures across parts of the east, but by dawn, most towns and cities will be at double digits. Most will start grey, though, with outbreaks of rain. Certainly for a good part of Scotland, some heavy rain here. The rain should ease from Northern Ireland, but quite a wet day for parts of northwest England, north and mid Wales. Showers across the south, but a good part of the day here will be dry, and we should see some sunny spells, lifting the temperatures maybe to 15 degrees. Generally 12 to 14, but feeling cooler because it will be quite blustery, quite boisterous, particularly when the showers come along. Plenty more of those showers around through Friday evening as well, but they do gradually tend to fade, so it's turning drier as we head into the weekend. Clearer skies across northern Britain will allow a cooler start to Saturday. Still a bit of a breeze early on, quite a fresh breeze at times along those North Sea coasts, but generally a much calmer day on Saturday with sunny spells for parts of Scotland, northern England. Further south and west, quite a lot of cloud. Bit of drizzle is possible through parts of Northern Ireland. Temperatures still mostly around or a touch above average, and the winds will be lighter on Saturday, so it'll probably feel a little milder. Mostly light winds on Sunday could allow some fog to form. Fairly cloudy skies, but again, most places will be dry and bright. Goodbye.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that